Hey, this is Marty and welcome to Kicking with Computer Science. Today we're going to work on Java Swing applications. Java Swing is a library used to create graphical user interfaces or GUIs. Um, and today we're just going to create a simple window that contains a JFrame. JFrame is one of the main components in Swing. It's the main window in the application, a top-level window that has the ability to close itself. The JFrame is typically where you add panels, buttons, and everything else that's in your user interface. So to get started, I've created a game driver class because ultimately we're going to be creating a Swing application game. Um, and so it has a main function, which is the entry point for your Java application. So the first thing, like I said, is we're going to um, replace this to do with a new instance of game driver. So let's just copy the game driver and we're going to instantiate a game driver in our main function. So we'll say game driver equals new game driver. All right. And I also want to add, what do they call this? Game driver. I'm going to add a run function that we'll build up later. Get rid of this. All right, so we're just going to add game driver run. There we go. And let's get rid of this. So you can see that the compiler is complaining because we don't have a run method. I'm using Eclipse, which is a very nice IDE that gives you lots of clues about your compilation errors. You can see that we have a quick fix to create a method run. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll just kind of leave this stubbed out for now with the to-do. All right, so I mentioned a frame. So now we're going to create a property of the game driver. So we'll make it private and JFrame, and we'll call it our game frame. And we'll declare it, but we won't actually instantiate it. Now you can see Eclipse is complaining because it doesn't know what a JFrame is, but nicely it gives you the ability to import. Another way you can handle that is by going to Control-Shift-O in Eclipse, and that will automatically add whatever imports are missing. So now we have a game frame, but we're not actually using it. So we need to, at this point, add a constructor. And so we'll just kind of do that manually above this main entry point function. So public, and I'm not a great typer, so apologies for mistyping. So we've created a constructor, just an empty constructor. One thing I like to do is run the app a lot just to make sure that things are working the way I expect. So let's go ahead and click the run button. And down in the console, you can see that it ran, didn't complain, didn't do anything either, but that's because we haven't actually done anything with this JFrame. So speaking of which, let's go ahead and instantiate it in the driver constructor. So game frame equals new JFrame. And when you create a JFrame, you can also pass in the name of the frame in quotes. So we're going to add a string and we'll just call it Java game. And since this is a property of the game driver class, I like to reference it with this just so I know that it's an actual property. If you don't do that, sometimes you can get a little mixed up. All right, so one thing, when you've created a frame, it's going to need a height and width. So we'll get keyframe set size. So we'll set size, and we won't use a dimension. We'll just use a height and width. And for our height and width, we'll go with 500 and 700. So we're basically just hard coding in these dimensions right now. It's probably going to be better to refactor this and move these dimensions up to the top of the game driver as constants or at least variables, so it's easy to change. So now in our game driver, so here's our main entry point. We're instantiating a game driver, which calls our constructor, creates a game frame, sets a size. One other thing when you're dealing with a JFrame is let's try that again, game frame, and then set default close operation. So for whatever reason, and I don't know the reason, you have to explicitly tell it how to close itself. And so we want to use this exit on close constant here. So that looks good. Format. All right, so let's go ahead and run this just to see what happens. And you can still see nothing. So what am I missing here? Well, I think I'm missing when you create a frame, we've created its dimensions and set the close behavior. But what we actually need to do is make it visible. So down here in our run operation, we'll remove the to-do, say this dot game frame, and I think there's a set visible method that takes a Boolean, so we'll just set it to true. And so let's go ahead and run it. And so this time we have an actual frame, and it popped up in my other window, so I have to drag it over. This isn't actually what I was expecting. The dimensions don't look right. I think I wanted a 700 by 500 because the width is first. So we'll make this 700 and 500, and then I'll show you how to make these constants. So and again, this is Eclipse. You can probably do something similar in JGrasp or BlueJ or whatever you're using. So I can do a refactor and extract a constant. I don't want it, well, we'll call it 700 for now, and we'll do the same for the height. Refactor, extract constant. All right, so now I have these two constant properties with weird names. This is really the height, so let's refactor again, refactor rename. And as you guys probably know, when you create a constant, it's all uppercase. So now we have a constant called width. And we'll do a refactor rename, and this one, I think I screwed it up again. This one is crap. So let's go refactor rename. The height is going to be 500. All right, and we'll do a refactor rename again. And there, so setting the height and the width. So let's run this. Oops, we have to save it and run it again. And so now I have a frame. Pretty boring, right? There's nothing in there. So in my next tutorial, we're going to add a panel, which is kind of a layering component that sits on top of the frame. And that's where we'll add some buttons. And as I mentioned, we're going to make a game. We're actually going to create the game of Pong, if you've ever played that. It's like a electronic version of tennis with paddles and a ball. So we'll set up the court for that next time. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time on Kicking with Computer Science. Thanks.